The New York Times, which for a very long time has not necessarily been a great source for news from the point of view of workers, those concerned with workers' rights, is about to get a dose of it themselves. They're about to experience a strike, which actually I believe might be live as of right now. There's a 24-hour walkout being conducted by hundreds and hundreds of their employees, consisting of both journalists as well as other employees. Apparently, Newsroom employees and other members of the NewsGuild of New York say they're fed up with bargaining that has dragged on since their last contract expired way back in March of 2021. And they announced last week, that more than 1,100 employees would stage a specific 24-hour work stoppage unless the two sides reached a contract deal. And as of last night, the union said on Twitter that a deal had not been reached. They said, we were ready to work for as long as it took to reach a fair deal, but management walked away from the table with 5 hours to go. We know what we're worth. That's great, and I like this even more. If you bring this up, they've established a needle for how likely a walkout is, and it's buried on the walkout certain thing. I like that. As someone who has to spend a lot of time on the election stuff on the New York Times, I appreciate that. But anyway, we were talking about this before the show. The New York Times isn't necessarily a place that we think of or go to get like the most pro-worker message. But they have as much right as any employee to strike if they believe they're being mistreated. What do you think?
Yeah, I think they should take a page out of the playbook of the nurses' strike across the country, because the nurses aren't just striking for their own purposes to get better hours, better wages, have a less stressful work environment. They're also very concerned about the patients and how the hospital is managing the floors. I mean, they're putting patients that should be in the ICU on floors where people are treated for lower acuity cases. They don't have the resources necessary to give the patients the care they need. And they're watching people die, and they're watching healthcare in America deteriorate because of profit motives in these hospitals. So they're also on strike because they don't want to see this happen in their workplace. They're having an impact on the larger country and the industry. If you're a worker at the New York Times and you don't like what your editors are up to, you can also withhold your labor to send a message that we need to have more say over what these final stories look like. And maybe then we'll see the New York Times give better coverage towards workers' rights and labor. But I strongly feel that the type of person who takes a job at the New York Times believes they are fundamentally different from the type of person that is a warehouse worker in Amazon. So their idea of class consciousness is limited to, well, we deserve this because we're a different kind of person than those people. I think they need to realize their solidarity with workers everywhere and the limited power they have, because they do have to sell their labor in order to make a living to the New York Times.
Yeah, that seems plausible to me. I'm not a psychic. I can't say what they on average view, or think of when it comes to this, let alone any individual. And by the way, it's not just journalists, it's other employees too. Some of which, probably don't have nearly as much influence or power or pay or benefits as others. We don't know. It's a lot of people though, I do know that. What I do know is that when you withhold your work, when it's 1,100 people, that's probably gonna impact the New York Times, I would gather. They're trying to reassure everyone that things are gonna be like totally cool. The spokesperson for the New York Times, Danielle Rhodes, says in a statement they're still in negotiations. It's disappointing that they are taking such an extreme action when we are not at an impasse. Well, is it that extreme? I mean, it's only for a day and they gave you guys like a week advance notice on the whole thing. But anyway, they said they have solid plans in place to continue producing content, which includes relying on international reporters and other journalists who are not union members. So I don't like that last bit at all. I don't know how you easily and immediately replace that many journalists. Maybe they have been dabbling with that new AI chat bot and they're gonna produce some news that way, I don't know. It seems like this is probably gonna hurt, and that is after all kind of the point. And by the way, I will close by saying this. If you want to support this effort, you can do it in a lot of the normal ways that you would with any group that's striking. But also people, including Amanda Hess on Twitter, are asking for readers not to engage on any New York Times platforms today and to stand on the digital picket line. So don't go to the website, don't listen to the podcast, don't do your Wordle or whatever. Don't go for the recipes, because obviously they're gonna have trouble producing the content, but if they also see a hit to people's interest in engaging with their company, then that might buttress the movement too. Any final thoughts, Jessica?
Yeah, it's an interesting point you just made there. Like, they're not going to be able to make as much content because their employees are on strike, obviously, but they're also telling them to boycott simultaneously, which kind of makes it easier on them because if they're experiencing less traffic, they need to produce less content. It's an interesting strategy.
Okay, let's mix it up. Everyone go to the New York Times now. Start reloading.
Put the pressure on.
Exactly. Break the site.